You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, it is a somewhat hazy day out there, but so far the weather is held after the storms we had that like blew through last night. But Boomer's on the board. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
Oh, it's that day.
It is that day.
You got your finger on a button, waiting for it. Play it.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo! There it is. It is hump day. You have made it. You are halfway to the weekend. Congratulations to all of yous. And yeah, hump day, always a good one. The camel just cracks me up still. How many times am I going to hear that and laugh?
Every single time. There's no limit.
Probably. I mean, why limit yourself, right? All right. Hey, listen, we got a great show laid on for you today. So in the continuing mode of working with the shaping the battle space or sharing the battle space, we got another guest coming on today. Becky Garrettson, who's been on the show several times before. She's also the head of the Eagle Forum of Alabama. Eagle Forum being a national organization. She's the executive director for the Alabama chapter. But 3 o'clock today, Becky Garrettson, Eagle Forum, she'll be on to talk about what they do, how they do it, and what they got going on. And then at 4 o'clock today, you know the deal. It's Grand Council. It's Jeff Poore, Dale Jackson. I assume Dale Jackson is not hunting alligators today, so we'll have him on the show with us. But yeah, Jeff Poore, Dale Jackson, Grand Council, that's at 4 o'clock as always. And then there's that whole triple dipper, so hit it, brother.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you've got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, right out the gate. I got several, and some of them are pretty good stories. We're going to talk about some home fries, things that are happening, cooking up right around your area, your neck of the woods, things that are happening right here in Alabama. Home fries, that's number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I'm doing that series all week long. Every day it's been a different group. Sharing the battle space. What other conservative groups are doing things in and around us? Like they're right here in Alabama, trying to influence policy or influence politics or work on advocacy for a certain cause. Anyway, sharing the battle space, part 3, we'll do that. That'll be in conjunction, too, with our call from Becky Garrettson from Eagle Forum. And then number 3, political lynch mobs. You know, it's amazing to me how Democrats are allowed to weaponize justice and use the constant haranguing that they've tried over time. You may recall Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas during his confirmation hearings, which, by the way, were chaired by none other than Joe Biden. But Clarence Thomas, after being just ripped over the coals because how dare he be a conservative black man, he was allowed the opportunity to finally make his comments. And he told them, including Joe Biden, that this is nothing more than a high-tech lynching. Amazing comments. We're going to talk about it. Political lynch mobs, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump over here to my comments. And before I do, I'll just remind you guys that one of our newest sponsors, Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics all around the North Alabama area. Southern Immediate Care is the sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue every single day of the week, and we're glad to have them on the team. Okay, I got to tell you, I saw a meme the other day. At some point, I know I showed it to Boomer. I saw a meme the other day that just cracked me up. Had a picture of an angry monkey, and it said, "When it's time to fight, you fight like you're the 3rd monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and brother, it's starting to rain." I don't care who you are. That's funny right there. Unless, of course, you're a liberal. In that case, you would probably assess that simple meme through the layered lenses of any number of grievance and victim-oriented dogmas. I mean, how dare you call it a monkey? How dare you suggest a fight? How dare you invoke the Bible by mentioning Noah's Ark? I mean, it's true. I can hear their caterwauling, their screeching even now. Meanwhile, Most of us just laugh because it's really funny. When it's time to fight, you fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and brother, it's starting to rain. Liberals, though, man, they've lost their sense of humor. In reality, though, I think they just lost their sense of reality. Case in point, just yesterday morning, I was surfing social media for a few minutes and I came across a music video that had just come out, just in the last few days. The video itself is a series of graphics, live camera footage, set against the backdrop of country music artist Jason Aldean and his band playing live in front of the historic Maury County Courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, just south of Nashville. The video plays a constant stream of images of riots, Antifa, BLM, protests, robberies, looting, general mayhem, and all of it's real footage, much of which was taken just in the last few years. I mean, why would anyone want to show all of that in their music video? It's a fair question. Well, the answer is pretty simple. Because the song itself is called Try That in a Small Town. And the lyrics are pretty clear. Here's an example. Here's some lyrics. You ready? Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk. Carjack an old lady at a red light. Pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool? Well, act like a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town. That song actually came out in mid-May, but the video was just released, and the song is hitting a strong note with listeners, although not all of it's good. Liberal heads are exploding everywhere like cheap fireworks, but salt-of-the-earth country music fans are loving it. The song is currently all of a sudden listed as #1 most downloaded country music song on iTunes Top 100. And what's not to like? I mean, how many times have we as conservatives watched the news in frustration and disbelief as we see the largely peaceful protests burning America's cities down, or tearing down statues, or demanding reparations, or calling to defund the police, or watching the security footage of innocent old men just trying to run their bodega getting stabbed, old ladies being punched from behind on a dare, thugs on the subways, pride parade nudity, the list goes on. And then along comes Jason Aldean, and he puts our feelings to music and runs a video of the perpetrators and just lays out a dare. Try that in a small town. But like I said, liberals are having a heyday right now, a complete come apart. I mean, how dare he, they say. So Country Music Television, CMT, it caved in the first 3 days and has already pulled the video without comment despite having run it all weekend in heavy rotation. Not one of Aldean's detractors has been willing to acknowledge that all he did is show real footage of real events and sing about real frustration. One gun control activist who runs the national organization called Moms Demanding Action claimed that Jason Aldean should know better than to threaten people with getting shot, since he, of all people, was on the stage at the 2017 Las Vegas shooting where 60 people were killed and 400 wounded. Well, there's some serious conflation right there, in my opinion. I mean, never mind the fact that nowhere in the song does he call for anybody to be shot. Now, I would say, though, that of anyone in the whole music industry, that Jason Aldean, of all people, has earned the right to be able to sing about being fed up with rampant violent crime. He lived through it. He knows the pain. Another detractor, a noted national police reform activist, claimed that the song was, wait for it, racist, claiming that the song was just a racist dog whistle invoking urban crimes that we better not do in his sundown town. What does that even mean? I had to look it up. A sundown town? That's slang for an all-white municipality or neighborhood that practiced a form of racial segregation by excluding non-whites through discriminatory local laws, intimidation, or violence. Really? You think the song said all that? That's what she says. It's a racist dog whistle, invoking urban crimes that we better not do in his sundown town. What a cheap thing to say. I guess what you mean is that small-town black citizens are okay with this. But because he's white, he must come from a town where they're discriminatory simply because of, I don't know, you think so. If that's the new standard, I mean, what are we living under? And here's the deal. Part of the claim that it was racist is because the site of the video's live performance is in front of a courthouse where a lynching took place nearly a century ago. I mean, again, if that's the new standard, we're going to have a heck of a time filming anything, anywhere. I guess by that measure, I shouldn't have attended that play in Ford's Theater a few years back since Abraham Lincoln was shot there. But this is typical liberal tripe. Attack the conservative view, but never once acknowledge that the underlying message is simply that people want the criminal acts to stop. I mean, is it asking too much for some of these same activists to realize for just 1 minute that real people, real lives, and livelihoods have been attacked over and over? Good people, innocent people, just trying to live and let live. And then they can't, because laws are not enforced as of those who espouse a liberal viewpoint or fall into the liberal versions of an unofficially protected class. I mean, you claim you're angry at the man or outraged by the death of a man you never met in a faraway state, you can burn down the town. That's an understandable pent-up rage simply needing its moment of expression. But if you dare to be a Christian conservative and walk the streets wearing a MAGA hat, then you're the downfall of Western society and you need to be dealt with before any more lives are destroyed by your very existence. Well, listen, Jason Aldean, he's just singing what we feel. It's really that simple. The average Joe and Jane, they want to be left alone, but the average Joe and Jane is also fed up. We know we're not racist. We know we are not oppressors. We know that we don't have privilege. We like guns, but we don't plan to shoot anybody. We love our God, our families, and our country. We work hard. We play hard. We step lightly because lashing out at folks is not our favorite thing to do. But you push too far, you threaten our family or malign our God or burn our flag, and brother, you just became the third monkey on the ramp to Noah's Ark, and you better learn to swim because you ain't getting on this boat. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. I like that monkey. But yeah, I'm saying, I mean, literally, this is a situation where all we have is a song talking about real feelings about real events happening in reality all around us. At the same time, it's a song with a video that all it did was show actual footage of real events that no one can deny happened, but they don't want to acknowledge that. They want to lash out that the guy dared to point it out. Well, I got news. He's daring to point it out to enough people who just made his song #1 in the nation. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Boom shakalaka. Did you tell me before the show started that you used to work for CMT, Country Music Television?
I did.
I find out things about you like every other day, I feel like. There's
I'm like an onion. There's just so many layers.
Well, onions have a little odor to them, but I'm not going down that road. But okay. So CMT just dropped Jason Aldean after 3 days because, by the way, I saw on Fox that some gun control activist is right now claiming credit for having gotten that whole video taken down. So
I'm just rolling my eyes. I'm pretty mad at CMT. I mean, I was a independent contractor for them for years, and worked with them in Nashville and in different states along the way. And normally you see them do the right thing and do what they're supposed to do. Play music videos and do things with the music industry. And now they're trying to take a stand for something they probably shouldn't be.
Or maybe not take a stand. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at this and think, is this? I mean, have they forgotten their audience? I mean, is it possible? I mean, country music audiences are kind of like hockey fans. They're pretty selective and they tend to know what they like, and they no longer drink Bud Light. Doesn't that clue anybody in? So what the heck? Exactly.
And I don't think it was this past year, but Jason Aldean's been the artist of the year for many years. I think he's had it 2 or 3 years, and that's a big deal. You're not going to want to take that off of your network. I don't know why they're doing that, other than they're trying to save their own face.
Well, they ran it in heavy rotation, is what I read, meaning they were pushing it hard through the weekend, and then all of a sudden, oh no, backlash. What do we do? Quick, take it down. Maybe nobody will notice. It's the number one song in the nation right now on downloads. So, that's a mess. Text lines blew up. By the way, the text line is obviously open. Obviously. 833-687-4448. And I just saw a meme, by the way, see if I can get back to it. I'm not sure I will. Matt Murphy had it up. Well, I'll find it in a minute. It was almost like he knew I was going to do that monologue today. but yeah, the truth be told, there's a lot to be said for what that song means, and the fact that all it's doing is just putting our thoughts into words. People get frustrated. People getting tired of stuff. People are prepared to defend their own, and then one guy writes a song. The song does really well. Next thing you know, liberals are having a freak out. Let's go to the text lines for a minute. 833-687-4448. Golly bum, where do I start? Let me scroll down here a little bit. I'm saying. Well, did you, where we go here? Ronnie from Athens, let's have another great show today. That is the plan, sir. Thank you very much. And we got a brand new texter. Is this Jerry from Athens? Is brand spanking new in the text line. Glad you're there, man. Julie from Hillsboro says, I'm playing Try That in a Small Town on continuous loop and Apple Play all day long.
Yes.
And Jason Aldean thanks you. John from Huntsville says, hey, Phil, it's kind of strange that just after I gave you the best grade I've ever given you, some crazy severe weather came through the Huntsville area, even a possible tornado. I hope I didn't disrupt the atmosphere by giving you that awesome grade. No, brother, that was if nothing else, that was the that was a lashing out at the madness. But nope, I'm proud of my grade. All good. Brian from Huntsville. Third monkey on the ark fight? No, that happened to the unicorns, and the female was kicked off, and the two males remained. That's why we don't have them anymore. Okay.
Badger from Athens.
Yeah, what's he got?
The only thing I can see about Aldean's song is that winner might see it as an invite to come to a small town and try.
Well, good luck with that.
I mean...
Yeah, and bad stuff happens in small towns. We know it does. Like Uvalde, Texas was a small town, and they did have that school shooting there. But, nah, it's I think by and large. And by the way, the video, he doesn't show flashpoints. Like Uvalde was a thing nobody could see coming. It happened, and it was over within an hour-ish. The things he was showing are systemic, like almost like cultural issues, like Antifa rioting night after night after night after night after night after night, and the mayor of Portland is sitting idly by and going, "Well, they're people too, and they have a right to their expression. It's a summer of love."
Exactly. They weren't things that were just a quick and done. It was
Yeah.
things that were just systemically just continuing on.
Absolutely. Missy from Faultville just said, "Awesome." Thank you, Missy. We appreciate you. Tracy from Athens says, "Amen, Colonel." Thank you, sir. Cameron from Decatur, there are 400 million privately owned guns in this country. How many of those are used to rob or kill? If we had 200,000 people in this country a year who went mad and started shooting at people, it would still be 0.05% of all gun owners represented. There's some math for people like you that like math. There you go. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back, and we'll be jumping into home fries, things that happened around the state. By the way, we do have a brand new second largest city in the state as of last night. I'll tell you all about it. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That'd be this one, Alabama. And I'm talking about this show goes like way on down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa back to Gadsden and parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Hey, I'll get these last few text messages so that we can keep that clear and keep it going forward. JT Lacey Springs says, Democrats losing humor. One must have had one in order to lose it. Aldine song, truth insults libs. Boomer, that means jackassery. I've just noticed that JT has got like sound effects on demand with us. TL from Huntsville. Play it again, Sam. That monologue is going to be a classic. Nicely done. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, TL. Russell from Rural Route 1. That's hard for me to say. So Jason Aldean sings about people committing crime, and liberals assume he's singing about black people, but he's the racist. That's a great point. They automatically assume he was dealing with black. I mean, by the way, a lot of the videos, the crime was you could see it was not all black people. That's for sure.
Well, he actually had to come out with a statement as well, saying
he did.
He did come out with a statement saying this song is not racist at all.
Yeah,
it's not meant to be racist. It's not. It's just proclaiming what is happening in our country today.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's funny. I was telling Boomer too during the break. There's a meme that just popped up. Like minutes ago on Twitter. First time I saw it anyway. And it says this, says, I'd have to guess that about 95% of Americans who the mainstream media call far right only want to work for a living, keep most of their money, raise their kids in peace, get them a good education without left-wing indoctrination, own a nice home, and be left alone. You know, extremists. And that's true. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why we're so fed up, because most good people in this nation, the majority of whom I believe are actually more conservative in their leanings, that's the way they feel. And that's why Jason Aldean's song is resonating, because they just want to do those things. They want to be left alone to live and to prosper and to raise their kids. And you got to deal with all of the hate going on with Antifa and BLM riots and defund the police and all the other nonsense. And then we're called the extremists. I mean, how? Anyway, okay. Last couple of texts here before I go on to the Dippers. Mark from Red Bay. Jason Aldean and Uncle Ted Nugent are good in my book. Not afraid to tell it like it is. We don't play that game in small town America. Thank you, sir. Mark from Red Bay. Skip from Tony says, hi, Phil. Thanks for saying exactly, all caps, what the mentally disturbed haters of Americana on the left are not likely to ever understand concerning the meaning behind Jason Aldean's spot-on hit. Skip from Tony. All right. Let me jump right in here. I got a sound effect for you because it is time, folks, to look around right here in our own backyard, gather up what's new in our area, and cook up some home fries. That's right. Sizzle them up. Here we go. All right. You may be interested to know, as we talk about the things happening here in Alabama for a minute, several stories, not the least of which is this one. You may remember that Birmingham has for, most of my life, all of my life maybe, until recently, been the largest city in the state. I mean, it just has always been that way. Well, it's been declining. Isn't it funny when you look around at the four major municipalities running down the length of the state here, Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile. Those are the four largest cities in the state. And the two at the far end, Huntsville and Mobile, have been thriving and growing. And the two in the center, run by Democrats, have been shrinking and struggling and facing higher crime. Reckon why that is. Anyway, just know this. You may recall that Monday we had a guy on, Dr. Scott Catino. He told us how he had been working trying to oppose the potential annexation vote for West Mobile County, a big chunk of it, to come into the city of Mobile proper. Well, last night they had the vote. And as of last night, Mobile is now the second largest city in the state. So, yeah, and by the way, what I didn't know until this morning when I was reading, catching up on the article and getting the show ready, I thought that, because there was 4 districts, they call them the Cottage Hill Corridor, the Airport Corridor, the Kings Branch Corridor, and the Orchard Corridor. Anyway, they call these 4 corridors, or these 4 sections of the county, all participants in the potential for vote. I thought it was all or none. I thought it was going to be a combined vote of the four. No, each one stood alone. So each one had the right to come in independently or with all the others. Well, last night, 3 out of 4 voted to come into the city of Mobile. You know, the difference here is, and I heard Scott Catino talk about that, and I know Mayor Sandy Stimson personally. I've always had a favorable view of him. I can't say that I think that every policy decision that every politician makes is perfect, but I have generally found him to be a squared away guy. Anyway, the end result is the mayor was celebrating last night because he's now the mayor of the second largest city. I mean, the population just went from, here's the deal, Mobile population is now officially going to be roughly 204,689. Population of Birmingham is now 197,575. Wow. Huntsville remains the largest city in Alabama with a population of 216,963. So it's a significant jump, but yeah, that's a big deal. And by the way, it wasn't even close in the airport corridor. They're the ones who said no, 2-1 vote, 862 to 431. So it was exactly double. But the rest of them, pretty strong in favor. Cottage Hill, Kings Branch, and Orchard. And Orchard hardly had any voters. I mean, it's kind of weird because you had, several thousand in one of them and all that. Orchard Corridor had a total of 71 votes cast in the whole area. But anyway, they're all now looking at city of Mobile is going to be annexing, and they are now guaranteed police and fire protection and EMS services right away, free garbage and trash pickup, funding for capital improvements. All these things are happening. We'll see how it goes, but right now, the mayor has said they didn't have to come to the city of Mobile. They did by their own choice. I know they're happy and we're happy, so it's a win-win. So yeah, we have just watched this. By the way, why is this a big deal? Well, first of all, the larger your population, the more federal matching dollars you can pull down for roads and bridges. The more you can do in terms of having clout when people go to the polls. It brings in a city council versus a county commission type government. And then, it just also means too that when you say, hey, of the big four, 2 of us now are the top 2 and we're Republican led, that seems to mean something, I would think. It's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, Mobile. Now the second largest. Isn't that crazy? I mean, in our lifetime, we have watched the top 2 cities in terms of size, Birmingham and Montgomery, dwindle down to now that the other 2 came up and surpassed them. And by the way, they're both Republican-led. Just saying. Next story, AL.com. Congressman Robert Aderholt, who was on the show, a couple weeks ago, he just made what is referred to by AL.com as the latest move in the interstate fight over U.S. Space Command's permanent headquarters. So Alabama Republican U.S. Representative Robert Aderholt introduced legislation to block the federal government from building, buying, or leasing buildings based on the legality or availability of abortion. Here's the bottom line is this is not related just to Space Command. Space Command brought to the surface the fact that the Biden administration views killing babies as being so important, so vital to the national interest, that they will make decisions about where they base military personnel on whether or not abortion is legal in that state, despite the fact that states' rights, in accordance with the Supreme Court's rulings and, oh, by the way, the U.S. Constitution, are clearly stated that we have a right to make these decisions. Alabama is a pro-life state. California is a pro-death state. The Biden administration, if this passes, would be prevented from making any decisions about building, buying, or leasing buildings for any branch of government based on the question of whether or not abortion is available. Meaning, if the, Department of Energy wants to lease a facility in, say, Alabama, they can't say, we're not going to do it, though, because you don't have abortion. Now, they can always try to hide it, but the bottom line is they can't openly do like what they're doing right now with Space Command. That's a good deal. And by the way, I will say this, U.S. Representative Mike Rogers has already dropped another bill that would help with this. U.S. Representative Dale Strong from Huntsville and U.S. Representative Barry Moore from the Wiregrass area. They have both chimed in as co-sponsors. And The legislation dropped in by Adderholt, you look at it and go, yeah, it's just a House thing. You still got to get the Senate. Well, U.S. Senator Roger Marshall, Republican from Kansas, introduced companion legislation in the Senate, and the bill has a total support of 14 different lawmakers who were signed on. So we'll see where it goes, but I love the idea of saying, you know what, if we're going to say that federal funds, because you see, that's the deal, y'all. The law currently stated, I think it's the Hyde Amendment they call it, the Hyde Amendment, I believe. The Hyde Amendment, which is current law, says you cannot use federal dollars to fund abortion, period. And yet what they want to do is say, but we're going to base, our buildings in places where we think abortion is readily available. Well, isn't that the same thing? You will or will not make a determination about how to spend federal dollars based upon whether abortion is prevalent. That's the same thing by a different name. Last one before the break. Last night in the home fries section, a former Supreme Court justice, retired, Mike Boland, is now a member of the Jefferson County Commission. Why is that important? Well, first of all, he was running against a guy named David Silverstein. Now, they didn't run on party politics, but, Mike Boland was a longtime conservative Republican member of the state Supreme Court. And his opponent, a guy named David Silverstein, who tries to portray himself as nonpartisan, donated over $130,000 to candidates like Doug Jones and U.S. Representative Terry Sewell. He was endorsed by Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin and even Doug Jones. So last night, Mike Boland ran away with it, 59% of the vote, and he is now going to be on the county commission. So we have more representation on the largest county in the state's county commission. All right, brother, take me to a break. We'll come right back. I'm going to check the news while we're on break because there's supposed to be an update on that Carly Russell situation where she went missing on I-459, and there's a lot of weirdness, a lot of questions. We'll talk about it doing some home fries when we get back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense a superpower. So you may have heard about this really, awkward story and very difficult story, and I don't know what to think of it, to be honest with you. Carly Russell is a young lady who in Birmingham, the story came out just a few days ago that she had been driving home from work. She's a student, a nursing student, but she was also working at a spa, I think at the Summit area or something like that. And she was driving home on Interstate 459, the spur that goes around Birmingham, and called her mother and said, "I just saw a baby walking on the side of the road. I'm going to pull over and see what's going on." And then her mother says that she could hear her talking to the baby, asking if she was okay, and then she heard her daughter scream, and she never hung up, but her daughter was not on the phone anymore. And then police, of course, were dispatched to the scene, and they find her car. They find apparently a wig that she wore a wig. It's just a style thing. But anyway, she wore a wig. That was on the ground. Her phone was on the ground. And she was missing for 2 days, 48 hours. And then she just appeared back at home. Okay, so pick it up there. And here's the deal. I don't want to rush to conclusions. I don't want to portray somebody as lying or trying to scam anybody, because I don't know. I don't know what happened yet. But I can tell you right now, there are so many unanswered questions. Like, first of all, why is it that in the middle of where's Carly, which is certainly the question that needs to be asked, nobody was truly asking in the police reports we were reading about where's this child? I mean, it's like that didn't even happen anymore. Hoover police continue to investigate Carly Russell's disappearance. They're still awaiting for her to, quote, be made available to obtain a more detailed statement. We are several days from her return now, 2 days, I think, and she has not officially made a statement. And the police chief made the comment that he was waiting until she had rested up a bit. If you think there's a child missing, I'm pretty sure you get in there and you get all the information you can right then. You have that magic window of time to try and get her back, get the child back. It says investigators continue to retrace the steps of 25-year-old nursing student who vanished Thursday night. They learned that she had gone to Target. Here's the other thing that's odd. So she left work. Apparently she went to a local restaurant, Tzatziki's, to buy food for she and her mom. So she bought food for two. And then she apparently from there went to Target and bought a bunch of snack food. But the snacks were not in her car when they found her. And then on top of that, they say that when she got home, that surveillance video in her neighborhood shows her walking down the sidewalk alone prior to getting back to her house. And then when they got there, EMS was called, allegedly by, according to dispatch, to an unresponsive but breathing person. But when they arrived, she was fully responsive and she was talking. And she did give a brief statement we just learned. So a few minutes ago, we find that the police did do they did an update. They say that Carly Russell has said that she, after she left the summit, that the whole thing happened and that it was with a baby on the side of the road, and that when she stopped to check on the child, that a man with reddish hair came out of the tree line and attacked her and dragged her away, and that there was another woman present, but she never saw the woman's face, and that they put a bag over her head and locked her in the back of an 18-wheeler. She could hear a baby crying somewhere, but she never saw the baby. And then they took her to a hotel. She says they made her take her clothes off and took pictures of her. And then at one point, the woman fed her cheese crackers, and then she got away. Okay. I mean, if she got away, then I think she would know what hotel she was in. So I assume they're going to be checking to see who was staying there. But the police are saying that basically they have no additional leads to go on right now. And they say, the mayor says, we know everyone has questions. It's important to share information and put the community at ease. This story's got holes, y'all. I mean, it's got big holes. And I would hate to find out that there was a scam going on. Anyway, the bottom line is this. I'm glad she's back safe. But y'all, that happened right here. And for a couple of days there was a lot of freak out going on, especially on social media, about what is happening. Is there a perpetrator who hangs out by the side of the road? Anyway, all that. We'll know more when they tell us. But right now, no one's talking about the child. and or alleged child, and we'll see what happens. Last thing on a much more positive note. So if you live in North Alabama right now, you may be aware that Matthew McConaughey is doing a movie shoot, and that part of it's being done in the Birmingham area. He's been all over Birmingham, showing up at diners, hanging out with people, going to see kids, I think, at Children's Hospital. But apparently we now find out Kurt Russell's also in the movie. Kurt Russell was in the Guntersville area yesterday. A guy I know, Marshall County Sheriff Phil Sims, he's got a story on AL.com today about how he got a call saying, hey, Kurt Russell's going to be in your county. We need some off-duty sheriff deputies to be, security. He's like, wow, Kurt Russell, cool, we'll do that. And then they said, and we need a location. Have you got one around here that you know of, a dirt road where there's corn growing on both sides of the road? Very specific is what they wanted. And he said, I happen to know just quite the location. He took them out there. Well, they went out there, watched the filming of the movie. Kurt Russell was apparently a super nice guy hanging out in the Guntersville area. Said that he was just kind of fun to hang around with. And so, yeah, I mean, I love that. I think you're finding more and more, too, that Hollywood is getting outside of Hollywood. Georgia and Alabama have had quite a few movie shoots in recent years, and I love that. But I also love the fact that somebody I know got to hang out with somebody that I actually like on the screen. And, yep, Kurt Russell hanging out in Guntersville. All right, there you go. That's a batch of home fries, y'all. We'll come right back after this break. My friend Becky Garrettson, Executive Director for the Eagle Forum of Alabama, will be on the line with us. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And yep, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, well, listen, I'm going to number 2 of the Triple Dipper for the day, sharing the battle space, part 3. So here's the deal. I said earlier in the week that every day this week my intent was to have another member of the conservative movement come on and tell us what their organization does, sort of lay the groundwork so you guys can know. I think it's important that you know who you're sharing the battle space with. You know, I talked about the fact, I likened it to the idea that, like, for instance, in a wartime scenario, your area of operations for your unit, well, you don't need to have overlapping lines of effort. You need to know who's there so you can avoid fratricide. You know who's there so you can coordinate your efforts. And you also need to know that you've got your turf and they've got theirs. Sometimes you're going to have an issue-based organization or a principle-based organization or a policy-based or a political or a legal. There's all kinds of ways you can get involved in what I would call conservative advocacy. One of those who's been out there for quite a while now, the Eagle Forum. They are a national organization founded years ago by Phyllis Schlafly, and I'll let my guest tell you more about that in a minute. But the Alabama chapter, Eagle Forum of Alabama, the executive director, is a friend of mine who I've had the pleasure of knowing and advocating alongside for a number of years, and that's Becky Garrettson. So without further ado, hey, Becky Garrettson, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be with you again.
It's good to be with you, and thank you for coming. And listen, I got to tell you, I did not realize until I was getting ready for today's show that the Southern Poverty Law Center has named y'all a hate group. Were you aware of that?
Well, yes, actually, not recently. I think we had been named previously, so I don't know if this is if they went back through and we have been named again as a hate group. So you'll have to send me that link. Interesting.
I think so. I took it right off the SPLC's website for the 13 hate and anti-government groups that are tracking in Alabama, and y'all are listed as number 2 on the list as an anti-government movement in Eagle Forum of Alabama. Whoop, whoop.
Well, they certainly have that wrong, but I guess we could, since they said it, we can wear that as a badge of honor.
Darn right. I mean, I'm waiting for them to name Rightside Radio a hate group so I can go out there and fundraise against it. But
yeah, well, it's coming. Watch out.
Hey, listen, my friend, what I want to do is I'd like to hear, give us the genesis, the background, a little bit of history, if you will, about Eagle Forum, how you got started. And then the Alabama chapter, I know you've only been involved for a number of years. Uni Smith was the executive director for a number of years. But tell us about what y'all been up to in Alabama and what you see coming. But just start with the history of the big movement.
Yeah, well, Phyllis Schlafly did start Eagle Forum back, it's been 51 years now. We had our 50th anniversary last year. And before Eagle Forum, it was Stop ERA. So she had a movement even before Eagle Forum came along, but she knew once that Equal Rights Amendment issue was going to go away that she needed to keep educating people on important, timely issues that are affecting the family. And so Eagle Forum was started. Eagle Forum of Alabama started over 40 years ago, just a couple years after the national organization. Uni Smith was one of the co-founders, and she was friends with Phyllis Schlafly. Uni Smith is still our president and still working hard every day. She's even down at the State House sometimes during the session, and she is a very amazing woman. So we've got a great person leading the organization here. But our main goal is that we advocate for public policy that protects and cultivates the nuclear family. And we do that in a bunch of different ways. One that you're probably most interested in and that your listeners know us because of the legislative fights that we get into. Not only do we help write legislation, but we also lobby for good legislation. We do try to kill bad legislation that comes along. And just by way of example, this year, Eagle Forum had presence at the State House every single day of the session.
Wow. We
hosted 3 press conferences from the State House. We testified in 7 public hearings, including topics like critical race theory, school choice, the Women's Sports Bill, What is a Woman Act, and some voting and election bills. So we like to say that we are your voice at the State House. And if some of you are familiar with the bill that was passed a couple of years ago that would ban all those transgender procedures, the puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and sex reassignment surgeries, we had a big hand in that legislation. A campus free speech bill to protect all of our colleges so these kids wouldn't have to go to their little free speech zones. That was a big deal in 2019, and we helped write some legislation and got that passed. And so we work very hard at trying to, we're not high-powered paid lobbyists. I mean, the majority, we have 1.5 paid staff, and it's a network of volunteers that we cobble together, and it's more than cobble. We have quite a little army up here that helps us. And so that's one thing that we do.
Yeah, let me jump on that real quick, though, Becky, if you don't mind, because you guys are like a lot of other organizations. You're volunteer heavy, staff light, and that's by design, really, because that way you keep the budget at a tight minimum, but you effectively put together, like you said, an army of volunteers. And I made the comment yesterday. I mean, so far this week we've had 2 other groups on, and both of them are the same way: 1 or 2 staff, lots of volunteers. And that's what I want my audience to hear, is there's a way for them to plug in, because it's not like you have to have a doctorate degree in divinity or anything else. You don't have to have an MBA. You don't have to have experience working in the upper reaches of government. You just have to have time and the willingness to give it.
Right.
And that's what's so important.
It's another important reason to donate, because we are able to be very strict with our budget, but we have a lot of expenses because we bring in experts to come testify sometimes to these things. You know, we do have a lot of expenses, but it's not personnel expenses necessarily. So your money goes really far when you give to Eagle Forum. And another great thing that separates us from a lot of other statewide organizations is we have a national presence. We do have an office on Capitol Hill. And so we are able to engage in those fights also. So when you support Eagle Forum of Alabama, you're also supporting the national work that we do as well, which is a real benefit, I think.
No, I agree with you.
To donors and to all of us, really just trying to educate people on what's happening, not only here at the state level, but also federally.
Well, and you guys have such a great pedigree that's built over time. I mean, 50 years nationally, 40 years just in Alabama alone. And am I mistaken, was Alabama one of the first state chapters?
You know, it probably was. I will tell you now, I will say this just personally, I think it is one of the states that is rocking and rolling, and we compete with other states and tease them that we're going to have more people at our national conference, and we have really fun little battles together with the other states. But the people look to Alabama and go, we want to do what they're doing because they are really good, and they're doing a lot of great things. Phil, one thing we started 2 years ago, back in the day, 40 years ago, Eagle Forum had a lot of small groups all over the state, like in every county. You know, it was learning about communism and all these little coffee groups and stuff. Well, as time has gone on and, you know, in the 2000s, those kind of began to go away. But we really resurrected that in 2021, and we have at least 18 statewide or groups that meet all across the state every month. And people can go to our website and try to find an event near you. But we are educating people on human trafficking or how to detox from vaccines, school choice, election integrity. I mean, we have such a wide variety of topics, but this is how we build the grassroots, and this is how we continue to educate people about what's happening in public schools. We are bringing light to the sex ed programs that are being taught that parents have no idea about this graphic sex stuff. And we have, you know, a lot of really great resources that we use. So another good reason to be getting involved with Eagle Forum.
That's outstanding. And so I just see this as being, you know, a win-win when you've got an organization, like you said, with a national presence, a long history, and a local chapter that does grassroots work. I mean, that's an ability. You have an ability then to get involved with something that is working at a level bigger than any one person could do on their own. But let me ask you this, with a couple of minutes left here, You guys have a great presence. I mean, you've done, like you said, a number of things. Not the least of which, I think the VCAP bill, which is the bill that helps to ban transgender therapies and surgeries on kids in Alabama. You guys were heavily involved in that. Helped write that legislation, even.
Yes.
What do you see coming down the pike? I mean, are there any particular issues y'all are keying on within the next year that if folks want to get involved, they can say, "Oh gosh, I can jump on board now and help work on that"?
Yeah, we have a couple of really important ones, and these are ones that we worked on this year as well. But school choice, we really want to empower parents to be able to choose the education and have their money go to the school of their choice, whether it be private school, homeschool, using tutors. So the Price Act is the bill that we helped with last year. So I know that will be coming back. We'll be watching because we know some people want to put strings on it. So that could turn out to be a bad thing. But right now it is very well written, and people can find out more about that on our website. Another one that we are supporting that is very important, and that is for cell phones in Alabama. If you purchase a cell phone in Alabama, that the porn filter, as soon as that phone is activated, the porn filter would switch to on. Super simple legislation, but very important in protecting young children from accidentally seeing pornography at a very young age, which is what we're seeing. So those two are really important. We have the drag queen bill that we're supporting so that drag shows cannot be done in public spaces where there are children. We really want to protect these young children from this awful, sex that's being thrown at them. So I know those are big focuses that we'll be working on. There are a lot of issues. I know we'll be fighting gambling. That's going to be coming very hard and heavy this year, and that is something we're opposed to. So we'll be defensively working on that end as well. We're working on several other pieces of legislation that I'm not ready to talk about yet, but you'll find out more as we go along. But we will be very busy in the next session. I will tell you that.
It's a target-rich environment right now, isn't it?
Yes.
Well,
very much. Very much.
Well, listen, Becky, I really appreciate the work that you've done. I mean, before you even with Eagle Forum, I know that you were with the Wetumpka Tea Party. You're very politically astute and conservative, and you've even testified before Congress with the lowest learner incidents back in the day. If folks want to get involved with Eagle Forum, go ahead and tell them right now where they can find you.
Okay, I'll do that. And if I could just mention one more thing, I'm at the State House right now, and something came up already, and this is why it's great to have us here. Let me tell you that. Can I tell you that first real quick, Phil?
Yeah, we got about 30 seconds here, Becky.
Okay. Well, then I won't tell you.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this.
Hey,
I tell you what, Becky. You want to hang on during the break? If you can hang on during the break, we can just come right back and keep talking. How about that?
Yep. In the meantime, go to alabamaeagle.org and find out more, but stay over for the break. I got to tell you this other hot news.
Okay. We'll be right back then. All right. We're with Becky Garrettson from the Eagle Forum, just one of those conservative groups sharing the battle space, and you might want to know they're out there. And so as you've heard now, this is 3 groups in a row that we've talked about just this week, 2 more still to come. There may be a way for you to get involved, issues-based, politics-based, legal, whatever. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, we're going right back to the phones. My friend Becky Garrettson, Executive Director for Eagle Forum of Alabama, just gave us the rundown in the last segment there about the history of her organization, the kind of things they stand for, what they're doing, what they've been after in the past year. But she's in the State House right now, which is also very cool because I love getting live reports. Remember, they're in special session right now for the redistricting thing. So that being said, let me just jump back on the phone with her. Hey, Becky, we're back. What you got going on down there right now?
Okay, so here's the situation. As you said, they're here for a special session to redraw the congressional line.
Right.
Well, sometimes they try to pass other things, and there was a bill that was passed in the House today that would remove the BIR, which is you can talk about this later and go into detail, but the Budget Isolation Resolution, and I'll let you talk about that when I'm off the air. They're going to remove the BIR from all local legislation. Well, they told the House members that this was really important because there's lawsuits that are coming and they need to do this. So it passed the House today 102-1. Well, we got wind of this, and we love to work with other organizations. So API, Alabama Law Institute, ALCAP, Eagle Forum were instantly alerted and realized this is a problem because when it comes to gambling legislation, like we saw last session, a Senate bill came through disguised as, well, it was local legislation, but it had to do with gambling. The BIR is a stopgap to not let legislation pass so fast. And so I came here, I'm here at the House, and I'm running around to all the senators saying, do you understand this bill can have unintended consequences to make gambling passed easier throughout the different districts and counties, and they weren't aware of that. So we were able to work together to get an amendment put on so that it would exclude gambling. Oh. Now, I wish they could just kill it completely, but had we not been here and had us not be working with these other organizations to try to do something about this, we will probably see a lot more, another way of gambling legislation to pass easier than it had been in the past, which is going to be, we're going to have gambling coming at us like a fire hose next year, the regular way, through regular legislation. We don't need a two-pronged approach where they've now made it easier to come through local legislation as well.
That's good.
So that was just.
I actually got a text from. I got a text from Stephanie Smith from API about that very thing right before I went on the air, and I was trying to decipher in my just real quick scan of the bill. I couldn't quite get a chance to digest it, but now I get it. So okay, I'll tell the audience more about BIR when I come back on after this break, but. I'm glad you were there. I'm glad the other organizations. And by the way, what you just said was exactly what we need to have happen. Conservative groups banding together to get work done in the same battle space. That's good stuff. Yes,
and we do that often. I also wanted to say they will be voting on this momentarily. So I'll be in the gallery watching. I'll text you and let you know what happens. Yeah. But I wish the amendment could have been, well, let's exclude it for taxes. What about raising taxes? We should have a BIR on that too. But anyway, we did what we could do, and it's definitely better than it was. And so I'm really glad we were able to be here. So with that, y'all, we're your voice at the State House, so please support us. Go to alabamaeagle.org and become a monthly donor or a member, and that would be awesome. And thank you, Phil.
Becky
I really appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate you, and thanks for being down there in the State House even today. So, all right, thank you, my friend. Well, listen, we're going to take a break right now. When we get back from this break, though, I'll refresh a little bit of what you just said because that's a key point, and I'll explain some of the reasons why. And then I'll kind of move this thing, sharing the battle space. You need to know who else is wandering around in your battle space, too. How about George Soros? What? Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about what he's been doing to try and fund the media, even in Alabama. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. And I mean, this show goes way on down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to gas parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, thrown in just for good measure. So let me jump in there and sort of lay the foundation for something that our friend Becky Garrettson just said a moment ago. By the way, Eagle Forum does great work. They've been around, like she said, for a long time, 40 years in Alabama as a local chapter, 50 years overall, 51, I believe. But that being said, she just mentioned something that's happening. So the gambling interest in this state, I don't care how you feel about casinos, if you want to go to Vegas or down, to Biloxi, whatever the case may be. I'm not a fan personally. I would just soon see no casinos set up in Alabama. Me personally, I just feel that way. But what's interesting is the constant stream of attempts to expand casino operations in Alabama are almost always done by the same people who have been breaking our laws and being raided by our attorney general and refusing to pay taxes. I mean, right now, Green Track down in Greene County, I want to say they owe something like $24 million in back taxes to the state of Alabama. Those are the people, by the way, that are trying to influence legislation. During the bingo scandals in 2010, we found out that Milton McGregor had been paying the staff of the Legislative Reference Service who writes the bills to make sure that certain words got incorporated to help him out if he had to go to court on something. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so anyway, these are the same bad actors who have been at play constantly trying to get themselves a leg up in the law. And I don't mean like a little bit. I mean like a lot. Like the last piece of gambling legislation that they had, I went down and testified against it because it was so bad. It was literally going to take the 4 or 5 key gambling operators, the big names, and going to write their names, their actual names, into our state constitution as being the only individuals who would have been allowed constitutionally to have a casino. That's like finding out that Publix and Winn-Dixie got their names written into the state constitution that they can be the only ones who own a grocery store in Alabama. That's how bad it was. I mean, it flies in the face of everything Republicans say they stand for. And yet there they were debating the bill. I mean, that thing should have been shut down the way it was. It should have been absolutely shut down. It's one thing to say, we would like to see an expansion of casino gaming. It's another to go say, we don't want to pay our taxes, we want a monopoly, and we want our names even written in the Constitution. How do you like us now? That's what it was. All right, so what Becky just said a minute ago was a reminder that in the last session, State Senator Bobby Singleton, Democrat from Greene County, he tried to slip something through in what we call local bills, because there's a thing in Alabama, unlike most states, we have local legislation. And that's where basically your local delegation, depending on where you live, your local state representatives and senators who serve that area, if they know you need something, and I don't know what it would be, something to do with expansion of a certain type of industry or trying to, I don't know, Sunday alcohol sales, whatever the case may be, they run a local bill for you in Montgomery because our state constitution does not allow much home control or local controls. So local legislation is not supposed to be for constitutional gambling issues. And yet, lo and behold, Bobby Singleton slipped one through. And it went through a little too easily. You got to watch local legislation because here's the bottom line. It starts flying so fast because there'll be 150 local bills that people will start, just leaving their name on the roll. And they'll be allowed to procedurally do what's called using the previous roll call to certify the next bill, which is deemed as non-controversial. So people are like, whatever, man, just do it. Shouldn't do that. In fact, I tried to make sure that anytime I left the room, I took my name off the roll so it couldn't be used with me out of the room, because you can even find out you voted on a bill and you were not even in the room. It's a crazy procedural issue, but there it is. In the course of doing these procedures, we have a thing called the BIR, the Budget Isolation Resolution. So when you bring a bill up, the constitutional mandate is that you have to pass the budgets. That's the only thing that the legislature is constitutionally mandated to do. But knowing that they haven't passed the budget yet, they have to also then they have to basically vote on the ability to leave the standard order of business budgets and do something else. Well, there's always something else. There's always something else. Doesn't matter what it is: economic development, funding for mental health, honoring a group somewhere with a road name. Doesn't matter what it is. There's going to be something else that has to get done. And so you have to get up there and, procedurally speaking, you have to move for passage of the BIR after introducing the bill. And it's like every bill, until the budget passes, every bill has 2 votes. You can kill a bill on the BIR. You cannot give it your vote on the BIR. I had it happen to me once by a Republican. But we've also, by the way, kept a lot of bad legislation from getting to the floor, because you have to have, I'm going from memory now, but I think you have to have a 2/3 majority, 21, to pass in the Senate. I'm not sure what it is in the House. But if you don't pass that BIR, you don't even get to go to the main issue, which is your bill. You can actually get up there and say, Mr. President, I move for passage of the BIR using previous roll up. We have an objection. Now we have to do a roll call. Now somebody wants to filibuster and speak to the BIR for a while. You can slow a bill down. It can also, by the way, give you time to get your act together because somebody brought a bill you didn't see coming. So I feel like I'm going in the weeds here, but the bottom line is this. If they are saying right now that they want to remove the BIR from the passage of local bills, is the BIR frustrating sometimes? Sure. Does the BIR also slow things down and keep it deliberative and make you have to work for your legislation? Yes, it does. It does. And if they're going to remove that, then we run the risk that another Bobby Singleton bill can fly through without anybody even having a procedural opportunity to slow that sucker down. Anyway, all said and done, I'm glad that API and Eagle Forum and a number of other groups were apparently down there keeping an eye on things. And yeah, wow. And it's so funny, man, that first of all, in a general session, in a regular session, when you've got 200 bills in the hopper and you're trying to keep track of what's going on, it can get daunting. You have to really stay on your toes. But when you're in a special session like they are right now, at most you're going to have 2 or 3 bills. You can do 2 or 3 bills. I mean, I know their focus right now is on trying to get the redistricting done, but you can handle 2 or 3 bills. And what she's saying right now is the senators were not even aware of what was happening. Well, come on, fellas, wake the frick up. I mean, this is not rocket science. And if that bill was just allowed to walk on through like it did in the House, then we might have seen Bobby Singleton dropping another home cooking type, local bill, and daggum. Anyway, there's 8 years in the state Senate talking to you right there. And it's amazing. But you can win on procedure. You can win or lose on procedure. You can have the best bill in the Senate, and you can't get it passed because you don't know the rules. You can have the worst bill in the Senate, and you can get it passed because you do know the rules. It's crazy. All right, I tell you what, Boomer, I think I'm going to take the break about a minute or 2 early. We'll do that right now. That'll give me a chance to come back and put a lid on this thing that I'm working on, sharing the battle space. Tomorrow, by the way, we're scheduled to wind up having a guy named Eric Johnston, who runs the Alabama Coalition, Alabama Pro-Life Coalition here in the state. He's a great guy, a great legal mind, and I'm proud to have him come on the show tomorrow. And looks like we're also going to have Boomer and McQueen tomorrow. Excited about that. All right, Boomer just nods his head like, yeah, gonna get it on. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Yeah, making common sense, a superpower. So, all right, I've been doing this section, and I'm going to wrap this up here in this segment. And then, by the way, top of the hour, don't forget Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. But I've been doing this section called Sharing the Battle Space. All right, if it's a battle space, that one would assume there's an enemy. There's somebody else out there who is opposing you. There's somebody in the fray that you are trying to coordinate with your side on in order to occupy a true battle space. Well, in this case, yes, that is true. I've been giving you insights over the last few days about organizations that are doing things for conservative causes right here in the state of Alabama. And by the way, there's nationals also too. You got national organizations that don't necessarily have a true local chapter, but they're doing work, like the NRA, for instance, for Second Amendment. You've got Alliance Defending Freedom, which steps in, does the occasional lawsuit, or the Pacific Legal Foundation. Anyway, there's conservative groups that don't necessarily keep an office here on state politics side, but they still come in and do good work. That being said, there are also those out there who are doing just the opposite. Everything that we exist for as conservatives is being done just as equally strong sometimes by those who are on the liberal side of things. Not the least of which is, don't forget, the Southern Poverty Law Center is actually is actually located right here in Montgomery. Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC, is notorious for raising big dollars, and also, by the way, being relied upon by like the Biden Department of Justice and FBI for its labeling of hate groups. A minute ago, you heard Becky Garrettson from Eagle Forum surprised when I read her the list that number 2 on the list of hate groups in Alabama, according to the SPLC, is the Eagle Forum, called an anti-government movement. Did she sound anti-government to you? You've also, on the way, got number 5 on the list, Moms for Liberty, Madison County, Alabama chapter, another anti-government movement. That's a group of moms that are going after, school choice and getting CRT and wokeness out of our schools and that kind of thing. Moms for Liberty. It's just amazing to me. That's right here. That's right here in Alabama. But here's one you may not know about. So there's an organization called ProPublica. ProPublica portrays itself as a 501c3 interested in helping with investigative journalism and funding investigative journalism around the nation. They are notoriously liberal. ProPublica, oh, by the way, is out there doing what it does, oftentimes funded by some of the most amazingly liberal, big money, sometimes dark money donors. One of those is, of course, George Soros. George Soros, through his Open Society Foundation, has given away hundreds of millions of dollars a year, like close to $500 million to different organizations and causes and liberal candidates just in the last 3 years. But in the course of all that, here's one you might want to know. AL.com. AL.com is a news source here in the state of Alabama, obviously. I go to it. I do. But you have to watch it, because if you're going to find liberal bias in the media in Alabama, it's going to be number 1 on AL.com. If you're going to find a anti-Trump, pro-abortion, let's get some more gambling, everything's racist, why didn't you get your vaccine, those stories are going to be on AL.com. You might be interested to know that ProPublica, with grants from people like George Soros, then also helps fund reporters at AL.com. Really? How do you know this, Phil? Well, because they brag about it. Here's a story from 2018. Abby Crane, writing for AL.com. AL.com has a little section they do called Reckon. Like bringing a reckoning is part of it, but it's also a spin on words, like I reckon this happened. Well, AL.com's Reckon section had a reporter named Connor Sheets. I know Connor Sheets. Reckon.com reporter Connor Sheets was named in 2018 as ProPublica's local reporting network. Basically, they gave him a grant to do his work. So what happened here was ProPublica basically funded his salary for a year. As part of the network, ProPublica's senior editors Charles Ornstein and Marilyn W. Thompson will collaborate with Sheets and other local reporters around the country on projects ranging from racial segregation and correctional facilities to emergency responses and environmental regulations. So what happens here is George Soros, who hates America, decides he wants to use his billions of dollars to fund an organization called the Open Society. And then the Open Society then gives grants and campaign donations to all of those liberal, all of these liberal DAs and others you're seeing that won't reinforce crime or pursue, the prosecution of crime. That George Soros is out there funding those campaigns. He's also, by the way, funding organizations that then advocate for things that you and I just do not want to see happen. And then one of the things he wants to do is make sure that, oh, by the way, the conservative viewpoint is suppressed. How do you do that? You get into their battle space. That's why we're hearing that down in Florida, a chain of conservative Spanish-speaking stations are all being bought out by a Soros-funded organization. Why would that be? Well, they were scared of the messaging. That's why you're seeing that AL.com, one of the largest online news presences in the state of Alabama, apparently has reporters on its staff funded by ProPublica. ProPublica then also being funded by George Soros. Do you see what I'm saying here? This is all in your battle space right now. These are people doing stuff that we need to know about right now. And it's not small money, y'all. And I know it's called, they often call it dark money, and I get why. And don't be mistaken, Republicans and Democrats alike love dark money. Dark money basically means it comes from an organization like a 501c4 that by law does not have to report its sources. It can say, we gave X amount of dollars to this. It doesn't say where they got the money to give it. But Lord, you look at some of these. Soros personally donated $170 million during the 2022 midterms to Democrat candidates and campaigns through his Open Society Policy Center. And he's got far more than that to come. We're looking at right now, no telling what his influence is going to be during the 2024 election cycle as he tries desperately to make sure that conservative causes are shut down and that America's sense of liberty is suppressed. But that's happening. That's not just out there, y'all. It's not just a liberal DA out there in California or New York City or Baltimore or Chicago. No, we're talking about things happening right here in the state of Alabama. It's in your battle space. And you got to be aware and you got to know. So when you click on the news, if you go to like 1819 News or Yellowhammer or Alabama Daily News, some of the ones that I typically trust, you can kind of rest assured that while they may have advertisers and people that might pay that differ here and there for their work, the truth is they're not being funded by George Soros. There's that. And yet AL.com, that's how their reporters get their salary sometimes, is through Soros-funded organizations. That's just messed up. And some of these organizations, wow, you look at them and you think, they don't even have a real office. There's one of them called the 1630, I believe it is. Is that what it's called, 1630? I'll find it here in a minute in my stack of notes. But the 1630 group it is has millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that it is used to influence for liberal causes all around the nation. And when an investigative reporter went to knock on their door, found a deserted office. The 1630 fund gave away $23.9 million last year. Where'd they get their money? Well, largely from organizations much like George Soros. And then I'm just telling you, it's follow the money. Follow the money. All right, listen, we're going to take the break. We're going to come right back. Time to switch gears. Going to the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. One of the best times we have on the show every week, I think. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. We got local, state, national, covering down on all the issues. And yeah, man, like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, hey, we're about to do Grand Council, but let me just tell you, I've had a number of texters text in saying that they're having trouble with some of the Huntsville signal. That's mostly the AM, all right? So if you're on 770 AM and the signal sounds a little weak or something's thready on it, just know that the storms last night had an impact, and you might want to switch to 92.5 FM to go ahead and pick that up. 92.5 FM, that's your backup. All right, let me just jump on in here because this is that time of the week when we go into one of my favorite moments. And we do a thing called the Grand Council with two other guys who do talk radio around the state, been doing it longer than me. And in fact, I have one of them to blame for the fact that I'm even here at all. That'd be Dale Jackson from 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN up in Huntsville. Also, by the way, writes for Yellowhammer News. Dale Jackson, are you here?
What?
Outstanding. Stand at ease. All right, and then our other guy who's coming on right now from 106.5 FM Talk 106.5 down in Mobile, host of the Jeff Poor Show in the mornings, and also, by the way, the editor-in-chief at 1819 News, Jeff Poor. Are you here?
I am present.
You are indeed. Thank you, sir. Glad of it. All right, Boomer, there's a quorum. Hit it.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Ba-da. Da-da-da. All right, we are back. Okay, fellas, you know the rules. We ping each other with questions. Don't even know them in advance. We just see how we do. And Dale Jackson, you're first. What you got?
All right, well, we're probably going to talk a little bit about redistricting, I assume, at some point in time. So I asked this question of Jeff earlier, and I'll ask it of you. The Livingston thing is just bait, right? Like the Livingston map, where it's 38% black in one district, 50 plus in the other. That's just bait. So Democrats will get all upset and Republicans will go, okay, we're not going to use this. Let's go with that other one that we came up the other day, right? Like they've laid a trap here, right?
You know, that's generally speaking was my thought, and you're going into kind of one of my questions, which I might still do anyway. But Jeff was on my show yesterday opining that this is a political ploy to basically set up a fight to try and get back to the Supreme Court again, with A.G. Marshall saying as soon as they deny that one, which they'll certainly deny it, we'll jump right in and appeal it. But, I look at it and think, I don't know. I mean, first of all, the first map that was dropped in by Pringle, I look at it and think, all right, fellas, get your act together, because allegedly Livingston, senator, and Pringle, representative, are the co-chairs of the reapportionment committee, and they dropped in separate bills. What the heck? Can we just please say we have congruity here? We're going to run the same bill. Yeah, to your question, Dale, I do think that there's some hanky-panky going on. Whether it's a ploy in that regard, I don't know. Jeff?
I'm hearing that late in this process, some of the senators got a little weak-kneed and said, hey, we're not going to take the fall if Alabama loses a Republican congressman, especially as tight as the margins are in the U.S. House of Representatives. Let the special master take the fall. They're probably going to come in and do it anyway. Let's not be on record for doing something. Let's stick to our guns here. And there was a little bit of a revolt in the Senate, and they parted ways with the House. A real last-minute thing. And Pringle took to the floor, and he's probably onto something here as a political consultant that maybe putting this out there, this map that Livingston has submitted. So there's a little bit of intrigue going on. But I tell you what's going on, what I'm hearing is you got a lot of frayed nerves, and it's getting real tense there in Montgomery.
Your own question, Dale. What are you thinking?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of frayed nerves down there. This whole thing has been kind of interesting to watch. They had entire public hearings where none of these maps were even discussed, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, these are the ones we're going with," which is it's just hilarious stuff, and it seems like a self-defeating way of doing things. But I kind of like it. I'm a fan, and I find myself being okay with that because I think it's kind of funny.
So Captain Chaos approves. There we go.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll wait and see. But I find one of the maps kind of personally objectionable because it moves my personal county into a district it's never been in before, and the other one I look at and go, I don't know, man. I mean, we'll wait and see. But it's just like Thunderdome right now down there with this stuff. All right, let me jump on the next question. I'm going to go broader for you. Jason Aldean, country music star, comes out with a song called "Try That in a Small Town." Has a video after the song's been out for 2 months. Has a video that just basically shows Antifa riots, looting, BLM marches, people spitting in police officers' face. All of it's real. All of it's real footage. Country Music Television, CMT, has now pulled the video after liberals' heads exploded because he dared to point out things that were real. And I'm questioning, is this CMT's Dylan Mulvaney moment? Jeff?
No, maybe, but I think they succumbed to the pressure, maybe not of the left, but their advertisers who were the ones taking the heat. They are so beholden to a TV audience, and you make money in TV, I guess, these days with advertising, and I think these big corporations, they're so woke scared that they turn the screws on CMT. That's my guess. I don't know. I mean, when was the last time any of y'all watched CMT? It's been a while for me.
Well, there is that. Dale?
I will answer your question with a song lyric of my own. Wop, 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 wop. You stop me whenever you want to. I'm going to do the whole song.
Stop
okay.
right now.
All right.
Just stop.
Okay. Just checking. I want to make sure that that's still okay. But don't try that in a small town. We got to get that off the air. In case you were missing, it's WAP.
Stop what you're doing right now.
Okay. All right.
You make a fair point, though. I mean, you've got literally, rap music for just one genre has been like lauding violence and misogynistic, treatment of women and just just overly sexualizing things for a decade or 2 decades or 3. And yet a country music guy comes out and says, hey, don't try and burn down our town. You might regret it. And that is somehow like antithetical to good order and discipline. I think CMT is going to survive it, but I think CMT has forgotten who their audience is. And I'm not in their audience. I'm more of a classic rock guy, but I just think that they have lost sight of their roots and they've gone corporate, and it's a shame. But anyway, we'll wait and see. Jeff, your question. What do you got?
Carly Russell, who had this something like this being the real a Juicy Smollett thing going on here. I mean, it was the way the media reacted initially, and then all of a sudden there's all these questions, and you're like, oh, this is probably going to end up this way, and it ended up this way.
Yeah, I was watching that earlier, and I was reporting on some of the updates from the police department's 2:30 briefing on it. I mean, her search history on her phone was, do you have to reimburse an Amber Alert? And what about the movie Taken? And how do I take money from the cash register at work without getting caught? And the whole thing. I'm reluctant to just outright say, I can tell from here it's a fraud. But I saw somebody earlier that said that the fact that Al Sharpton didn't show up told them it was not probably going to work out. So anyway, Dale?
I'd like to also answer this one with a song. No, I'm just kidding. The fact of the matter is, I think we all knew this from the very beginning, but we were all hesitant to say so because there was a child involved. If there was not this child thing, I think most would be like, yeah, right, whatever. I think it's how people would have probably. That's what I would have done. I have a system called the Dale Jackson, this happens system, and this would have given this like a 10% chance of happening. But the kid involved kind of changed things. And I'll tell you why I'm mad about it. It's because as we have these conversations for an entire weekend when this conversation is taking place, if there was a kid that was in need of help somewhere in the Birmingham area, people would have maybe questioned whether or not they should help that kid or not.
I look at it and think, all right, the fact that the police officers weren't even talking about the kid from the moment we said go told me a lot right there. Your own question there, Jeffro. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and I understand there was a track record here with this individual, The only thing the quibble I have with the whole thing is they should have given the all clear a little earlier, that there wasn't some kind of crazy kidnapper. There's the same thing with Dadeville and waiting around to tell the public that they got these killers or whatever. They seem slow to call off the dogs and keep people. People can be on edge about this stuff. Yeah. I think the response is too slow.
Well, there you go. We'll see how it plays out, man. But it's got more holes than Swiss cheese right now. It's going to be ugly. All right, that's round one, fellas. Round one of the Grand Council with Jeff Poor from FM Talk 106.5 down yonder in Mobile, also with 1819 News. Dale Jackson, WVNN up in Huntsville, also with Yellowhammer News, and just little old me. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Come on. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. We're going right back now to the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. Round number 2. Dale, you're up first. What you got?
Tommy Tuberville continues to fight the good fight, and he's 100% right. Today, John Kirby apparently slamming the podium and saying, it is our obligation to continue this bedrock principle of funding abortions with government money, even though it's against the law, because otherwise women won't want to be in the military because all they care is about abortion because they're all sluts and they love the song WAP. Anyway, the point is they continue this fight. Tuberville is showing no signs of caving. How long does this go on for?
You know, it may go on through the next administration. I don't know. But I, first of all, somebody the other day was trying to take issue with Tuberville saying he's got no military experience. Well, neither does Biden, by the way. And I
he is the chief, though. He's the commander in chief
when he's awake. But you look at this whole thing and think this is a ridiculous fight that we're having to have. But I am so glad that Tuberville's been willing to take a stand. I mean, somebody was criticizing him, and I thought, you know what? He's sitting there taking heat, and he's taking it. And I'm glad of it. And it's absolutely, it's just ridiculous to think that women won't join the military because they can't get an abortion. And oh, by the way, they give them more time off to go get an abortion under current policies than they do to go to their mother's funeral. It's just unreal. Jeff.
Phil, just think about this. Remember when we were in? When you got in, you got 30 days off. When you got out, you had 30 days off.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, just think about that for a second. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Jeffro,
6 weeks vacation from day one. Sign up.
Wow.
Tuberville's popularity continues to go up and up and up and up in Alabama. As long as he is, there's no incentive unless they can concoct. They tried it already. They tried to manufacture controversy, thinking that and it was a self-inflicted wound going on Caitlin Collins and trying to defend the term white nationalist. Well, whatever. Don't do that. Just stay home that night. But they're trying to turn the heat up on him. The only way they can get him is they think is to get his colleagues to push him, his Republican colleagues to push him. But I don't think that's going to work. I think it goes on until the administration backs down or there's a new administration.
No, I think, too, you also notice today, like Jim Jordan came out in support of him wholeheartedly. And you're starting to see more and more people realizing that, man, he's getting something done. And what's crazy is Democrats have used this same tactic, but they've forgotten that part. Anything to add to your own question, Dale?
Tammy Duckworth is the one that used it. It was just hilarious because they've been using her as a human shield in order to make it because she was in the military. And God bless her for all she did and what she suffered and all that other stuff. But, I'm tired of hearing about people's military service as a shield. It doesn't impress me. It just doesn't. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. Tell me what your opinion is and tell me why it's valid. I don't care about the other part.
Yeah, and the reality is he's not in any way debilitating the military despite what they might say. He is literally saying, hey, DOD, you're not the legislative branch. If you want to change the law, bring it over here, change it. Otherwise, get in your lane. All right, I'll take the next one. Alabama, right here at home, has another second city with a population over 200,000. Mobile, as of last night, became the second largest city in the state. I find it interesting, and I want to know your thoughts on this. I find it interesting that of the 4 largest cities, the 2 that continue to grow and excel and have more economic development are the ones that are being led by Republican administrations. And the 2 that used to be the biggest are shrinking, according to the census, and also has higher crime and more issues, and that would be Montgomery and Birmingham. Thoughts, Dale Jackson?
Well, I think that Mobile is definitely taking a page out of the Huntsville playbook of if we can't attract people, we'll take them. And that's basically what they have done.
It was a vote of the people.
I know. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's what they're doing, that they're growing their city that way. And I think that's completely fine. Look at Huntsville. That should be something that every city's trying to do. But eventually we're going to start annexing places in Arkansas before this is all said and done.
Jeff, you live down there. How do you feel about being in the second biggest city in the state?
I mean, I don't live in Mobile for a bunch of reasons. I live on the other side of the bay. But I'll say this: I don't know, you call them Republican administrations. It's not like they're like stereotypically Republican, Tommy Battle and Sandy Stimson. They're just right? They're a little bit of everything. But I mean, it came down the vote. There were three areas, three chunks that they were getting or four, but the three of the four voted, and the fourth one did not vote to go in, and it got crushed. And it's because you had this church out there in West Mobile organized against some of the stuff they were doing with the LGBTQ issue. So, I mean, it was a good night, but it could have been a great night. If this vote happened in February, away from Pride Month, I think they would have gotten all four areas into the city.
I think you may be right. I think I had that guy on my show Monday, and he laid it out pretty clear. But the reality is it was still. I mean, in fact, I tell you what, Jeff, it surprised me. I didn't know till this morning when I was reading the results. I thought it was all four districts had to vote all or none. I didn't know they could vote individually. Like one of them could come in if they wanted to. So that was
real quick. What they had to do, there were two big chunks, like the out Airport Boulevard, out Cottage Hill Road. But then there were two very small neighborhoods, and they had to have those. They just could have been a coin flip. But the only way the city council went along with it, because these were African-American neighborhoods, they had to include those to keep the racial balance of the city.
Oh, wow. Okay, didn't know that part. Jeff, we got about a minute. You got a quick question? Oh, hang on. I say we got 20 seconds.
Yes or no? It's going to be back on the Algop referendum. They're going to say you can't take their money at the Algop summer meeting, but they're going to leave legislators out of it and everybody else.
What?
If you're a legislator, you're not going to be forbidden. That's what the one of the ideas is on the table. Good enough, yes or no?
No. Dale?
They're never going to enforce it anyway, so no.
Don't sing wop wop anymore on my show, by the way.
Wop, wop. All
right.
7 days a week.
Guys,
Certified freak.
Appreciate you. Grand Counsel, Jeff Poor, FM Talk 106.5 down in Mobile, and also with 1819 News, Dale Jackson, WVNN up in Huntsville, and with Yellowhammer News and me. That's Grand Counsel. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we're back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I mean, this show covers down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. That's Alabama. And I'm talking about we send our signal like way on down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, folks, I got to tell you, one of our newest sponsors, Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics all over the northern part of the state. So Southern Immediate Care with offices in, they got Gadsden, Anniston, Attala. They're also got 5 new locations in the Birmingham area. 2 of the newest ones are in Chelsea and Hoover. They're open 7 days a week. And they have extended hours. At most of their locations, they can do your x-rays, immunizations right there on site. Walk-ins are welcome. They can see clients or patients of all ages. Listen, this is actually where I go. All right, Southern Immediate Care is where I go in my area, and they're always available. And I've always been so impressed with the cleanliness and the staffing. So yeah, Southern Immediate Care. If you need a medical care, listen, this is talking about weekends too. You wake up on a Saturday morning and the kid's got a fever. What do? Southern Immediate Care. So if you go down there for the first time, by the way, do me a favor and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. But Southern Immediate Care with locations all over North Alabama. Check them out. I think you'll be pleased. All right, let me just jump into my next dipper here. Dipper number 3. Boomer, I'm going to get a third dipper done.
Oh, yes.
Come on. Got applause?
There's the applause right there.
I'm getting the boomer clap.
Boomer clap. No, I like it. It's the boomer clap.
I got the boomer clap. Okay. I didn't get the whole round of applause. It's the boomer clap. Like, what are you excited because you did your job? What are you excited? What's going on? Snap 2, buddy. All right. Hey, listen. I've been watching the news the last few days. Well, I watch it every day, but the last few days I've been noticing a trend. The more liberal side of the mainstream media, CNN, NBC, CBS, are slobbering on themselves again. They are drooling at the idea of get Trump. It's really gotten to the point of being ridiculous. The outside words, the inside words are being said outside on a regular basis. It is so obvious that what has happened now is they have lost complete sight, and they have for some time, but they've lost complete sight of the idea of even trying to pretend that they just want to see justice served. When you've got lawsuits pending, and by the way, don't say, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. No, don't even try to pretend for me that DA Alvin Bragg up in New York actually had a real thing going on. And now we find out that, oh, by the way, they're getting both of their favorite things. The media is getting both Trump and January 6th all at one time. Oh, the halcyon days of reporting are back. We can talk about both Trump and January 6th. Whew, I thought we were done with it, but no, we find out that apparently President Trump's organization got a letter, I believe he said last night, he got it on Sunday evening, that said that he has to appear before a grand jury to provide testimony to the grand jury investigation on January 6th, and that he himself may in fact be a target of the probe. Wasn't that like 3 years ago? Yes. Yes, it was. 3.5 to be exact. Yes, it was. Folks, this is ridiculous. And what I've gotten down, the third dipper today, is called political lynch mobs. I want to harken back to something. We all saw it most recently with Justice Brett Kavanaugh being, confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. But I think the role model, the litmus test for smear the person and get the position was Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas had to sit before a panel back in 1991, a Senate Confirmations Committee chaired by none other than Joe Biden. You remember that? Senator Joe Biden trashed a man's character, made stuff up. It was just like what's-her-name that accused Brett Kavanaugh when he was 16 years old of being inappropriate with me. Oh, really? But the reality is a woman who had worked as a clerk, I believe, for Justice Thomas when he was a judge, came back and said that years later, in a manner that did not befit his character or anything else, that he had in some way sexually harassed her. brought up a porn movie and talked about it in the office. Ooh. And by the way, if he did, wrong. But it was proven that she was lying. In the meantime, he had to sit there for weeks in front of that committee, having his character maligned, having allegations made up about him and leaked to the press, having his entire life tossed around. Do you remember what he called it when he was done? Well, here's what I want to do. I want to start this segment off by just reminding you guys of who the President of the United States is right now. As Joe Biden, and I've got this, by the way, I've got a copy of the transcript right here in my hands. And it starts off with Senator Biden calling the room to order. Senator Biden calling the room to order and then saying to Justice Thomas, Judge, tough day, tough night for you, I know. Let me ask, you have anything you'd like to say before we begin? And he did. And he delivered comments that still to this day resonate. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read you part of it because it's important to this point that I'm making about political lynch mobs. Justice Thomas said to Joe Biden that day, Senator, I'd like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with that Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her. Second, and I think a more important point, and here's where he just ripped him a new one, I think that this today is a travesty. I think that it's disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee and was then leaked to the media. And this committee and this body validated it and displayed it in prime time over our entire nation. And then he went on to say, the Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. And I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country can be subjected to this. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And then he went on to really wrap it up. He said, and from my standpoint as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it's a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it's a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree. Dang, that's strong. Dang, that's strong. A high-tech lynching. And that's Justice Thomas, who still sits on the bench today. Can you imagine Justice Thomas putting on his robe and going to the, down the street to the Capitol building to hear the State of the Union address delivered by none other than now President Joe Biden, knowing that that's the person who was treating him that way. Now, do you have any wonder why we have free reign, apparently, on the liberal side of things to do what I'm calling make political lynch mobs? So right now, the press is salivating, y'all. They are coming apart at the seams. They are just bursting with opportunity. They cannot wait. They're looking for anything to talk about. It's like watching one of those, we don't know how the crime went down, but we'll talk for 24 hours until we figure it out. Daily Wire has a piece. Trump prosecutor ate lunch at Subway. Next on CNN. This is what happened. That's not a joke. One reporter and two anchors devoted actual airtime to examining the fact that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor against Trump in the January 6th investigation, actually stopped at Subway and got a sandwich. And they talked about it. He got a sandwich. He's walking out of there with a sandwich. If it wasn't ridiculous enough, the article says, anchors John King and Dana Bash then took the baton and ran with it, suggesting there was some hidden meaning buried in the fact that Smith had taken time out of his busy day to eat fresh. Really? The segment then followed former President Donald Trump's announcement that he expected to be indicted again and possibly arrested in the coming days as Smith is pursuing his case. Y'all, that's what we're looking at right now. They've got a political lynch mob that has just been waiting for a question to fit their solutions. And now that they got a special prosecutor finally bringing him in to talk about January 6th, oh my gosh! It's like a whole new day. They've revived everything. Getting the old band back together. Come on, fellas. It's January 6th and Trump. Let's get her done. He got a sandwich. Well, what does that mean? Let's talk about why he got a sandwich. He went out for work, out for lunch. What do you think about that? It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, at the same time, story here on the Post Millennial. Federal investigators have reportedly seized the phones of advisors to 2024 GOP frontrunner Donald Trump as part of the investigation into the events of January 6th. I mean, this is what their intent is here, in my opinion, is to keep the legal wrangling going all the way through the election so that he has no time to even campaign. They know they don't have anything they can work with. They know they don't have something that is going to wind up being the thing that gets Trump.
Yeah. Okay.
But what they can do is keep him tied up in hearings and grand jury testimonies and providing any number of available times to them at their demands. It's a political lynch mob. We'll take a break right now. I'll come back and I'll tell you a little more about it because it broadens out from there. Like, did you hear about the fact that the Michigan Attorney General discharged 16 quote unquote false electors for having stood for Donald Trump in the presidential election? And then, what happened when Ron DeSantis actually went on CNN and stared down Jake Tapper and told what he thought about all this? I'll tell you, it's a whole lot different than what Mitt Romney said. I'll tell you that too. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, making common sense a superpower. Hey, listen, I got to tell you guys before we go today, ZLA Solutions, they've been with us since the very beginning. ZLA Solutions, their website is zlausa.com. But ZLA Solutions, they are an organization. I know these folks personally, and I like them a lot, and I think they do great work. But ZLA Solutions is doing an epic good job at helping businesses find ways to improve their current processes. And oh, by the way, help them find the staff they need. So if you need people, here's the thing. They can help you find the onesies or twosies, the special niche skills hard to find. They can do that. They can also, by the way, help you staff out an entire shift at a factory, staff up at a hospital, any number of things. Service industry, automotive industry, doesn't matter. Blue collar, white collar, no collar, I always say, doesn't matter. They can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing. They can have you squared away. Yeah, ZLA Solutions. Their website, again, zlausa.com. Check them out. And do me a favor, when you talk to them, we all know each other personally. Tell them you heard about it on the show, Rightside Radio. I get a kick out of it when they tell me they've heard another one. All right, let me jump back in here for the final moments of the show. So in a minute, I'm going to play an audio clip if we have time. It lasts about a minute. Ron DeSantis. But I'm doing this section right now. The third dipper is called Political Lynch Mobs. I talked about just a moment ago the allegations that are just flying in from all angles at Trump. I think part of the strategy here is literally just to keep him busy for the next year to diminish his ability to campaign. That's what I think is happening. I also think there's a Trump derangement syndrome going on. They're slobbering over themselves for the opportunity to try and get him. And then at the same time, they can't stand the idea of not being able to talk about January 6th some more, so that's going to happen. Meanwhile, here we go. Look at their attacking people left and right who are ever possibly going to be supportive of Trump. Michigan Attorney General files charges against 16 quote-unquote false electors for Donald Trump. You may recall that there was a battle over some of these swing states. And there were those who filled out the paperwork believing that they should be the proper electors based upon what they perceived as the real voting counts. And that happened in a number of states. Well, the Democrat Attorney General in Michigan, Dana Nessel, said Tuesday that 16 people would face 8 criminal charges, including forgery and conspiracy to commit election forgery, with potential prison time of 5 to 14 years each. This includes the head of the Republican National Committee's chapter in Michigan, as well as the former co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party, and several others, including one Shelby Township clerk, Stan Grott. The group is alleged to have met inside the Michigan Republican Party headquarters and signed false documents which were transmitted to Congress. Really? That's what you got. And you're going to reach back and say, that was the crime of the century, and you're going to ruin these 16 people's lives because you're desperate to get out there. Well, here's what the Michigan Democrat Secretary of State said. As we prepare for the 2022-2024 presidential election, today's charges are the first in an ongoing effort to not just seek justice for the wrongs of the past, but to ensure they don't happen again. Oh, did you hear it? Just said the inside words on the outside. Today's charges are the first. This is a coordinated effort. They got more coming, and they're trying to do all they can to make sure they can capture that election in 2024. Lastly, let me tell you this. I did appreciate the fact that Ron DeSantis, who has every opportunity to trash Trump if he wants to, he came on Jake Tapper's show and he did an interview and he held his own, man. And he basically said he did not agree with the idea of Trump being charged. Remember, you got that clip? Let's just play it. It's right about a minute. Go ahead and play it.
This country is going down the road of criminalizing political differences. And I think that's wrong. Alvin Bragg stretched a statute in Manhattan to be able to try to target Donald Trump. Most people, even people on the left, acknowledge if that wasn't Trump, that case would not have likely been brought against a normal civilian. And so you have a situation where the Department of Justice, FBI, have been weaponized against people they don't like. And the number one example of that happened to be against Donald Trump with the Russia collusion. That was not a legitimate investigation. That was being done to try to drive Trump out of office. And so what I've said as president, My job is to restore a single standard of justice, to end weaponization of these agencies. We're going to have a new FBI director on day one. We're going to have big changes at the Department of Justice. Americans across the political spectrum need to have confidence that what is going on is based on the rule of law, not based on what political tribe you're in.
And not based on whether you're trying to form a political lynch mob. That's my thought. I really appreciated the fact that he had an opportunity there to sort of malign Trump's character and say that he's, where there's smoke, there's fire, and we'll wait and see how it all plays out. No, he didn't do it. He came out and said, this has got to stop, basically. I'm paraphrasing. Obviously, you heard it. But he's basically saying this is wrong. And the American people need the opportunity to trust their media, to trust their politics, and to trust their law enforcement, to trust their secretaries of state. What I just gave you examples of a moment ago were at the state and federal level, in the media, political lynch mobs, and it's just freaking wrong. All right, listen, what an amazing show that was. We got a great show laying on for tomorrow, which is going to include, by the way, Boomer and McQueen. McQueen being back from her coaching rounds, and she'll be in studio with us tomorrow. Also going to have on a guy named Eric Johnston, who is the head of the Alabama Pro-Life Coalition. We'll talk to him about, just being in the fray. He's been in there for a long time, by the way, duking it out. He's watched some of the greatest results in terms of Alabama being a pro-life state and now the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. But yeah, he's been in the fray for a long time. That's part of the ongoing sharing the battle space that I'm doing all this week. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. And Eric Johnson's a great guy. I know him personally, and I think the world of him. So you guys stay tuned for that. All right, man, boom. That show just like it flew by. Did it fly by to you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and it's not even raining, so now we can go home and enjoy the afternoon.
Yes. Go hit baseballs outside.
Oh, it's good, man. Little guy getting ready for the next season.
He just wants to keep playing.
I told you, I think my little guy, he plays soccer. He's about to turn 4. And, Daddy, I want soccer season to come back. Well, we can play inside for right now, Bubba. There's no season yet. Daddy, I like the breeze in my face when I play soccer.
The breeze in my face.
The breeze in my face. All right, you guys. Y'all have an amazing night. Boomer and I back here tomorrow at 2. We will see you then.